On a Saturday morning, Linda Carter dragged her tired feet back to her apartment after finishing her night shift at the hospital. The 12-hour shift in the emergency room had been more grueling than usual. As she climbed to the third-floor hallway of her building with no elevator, the sweet aroma of pancakes and the sound of someone moving about lightly wafted from her apartment. When she unlocked the door, her 12-year-old son Tommy turned around in his apron. On the kitchen counter, fluffy pancakes were stacked like a small mountain. The breakfast preparation was perfect, complete with blueberries and bananas. "Welcome home, Mom. I made pancakes today. There's maple syrup too, so eat plenty. Oh, and I got an A+ on my math test." Tommy's smile eased Linda's fatigue a bit. Weekend breakfasts were always prepared by her son. His thoughtfulness toward his mother after her night shifts warmed her heart. Her son, who excelled academically and was well-mannered, was her pride as a single mother. As she sat at the dining table, Linda recalled 17 years ago. When she, a high school junior at the time, saw the positive result on her pregnancy test, she felt as if her world had gone dark. Her mother, who was actively involved at First United Methodist Church of Scottsdale, feared nothing more than an unwed pregnancy. The boy she had been dating stopped coming to school the day after she told him about the pregnancy and left town altogether. Her mother Patricia's fury still rings in her ears. "Shameless. How can I show my face at church? Get an abortion right away." For her mother, who had worked as a church secretary for over 30 years, her unmarried daughter's pregnancy was the ultimate humiliation. But Linda chose to keep the baby. That decision would forever change her relationship with her family. Fortunately, the church pastor at the time supported her. Her part-time employer showed understanding, and the school counselor became her ally. She attended night school to obtain her nursing license, and now she's a trusted figure at the local hospital. Meanwhile, her sister Ashley had always been the perfect child. She graduated from a prestigious university and married James Brooks, a partner at the town's largest law firm. Their wedding 2 years ago was as grand as a fairy tale. Seeing her sister in a pure white wedding dress, their mother wept with joy. Mother doted on Ashley. "You're my pride and joy. I'm so proud of how you turned out." At church gatherings, Ashley was all anyone talked about. Meanwhile, Linda's existence was thoroughly hidden. To protect her mother's position at the church, Tommy was passed off as an adopted distant relative. Although Linda endured the discomfort during Sunday services, she remained silent. Instead, she cherished the time with her son. On holidays, they would visit museums, and she spent time with Tommy as his eyes sparkled with interest in science. She was determined to fully support her son's dream of becoming a doctor. "Hey Mom," Tommy called out. "Something came in the mailbox yesterday." Linda's expression clouded when she saw the envelope on the table. It was an invitation to her sister's baby shower at the luxury hotel, the Phoenician. Golden letters danced across the cream-colored premium paper. Last week, her mother had declared over the phone, "Finally, I'll have a real grandchild." Those words still stung in her chest. "You don't have to go," Tommy said in a small voice. "We could go see a movie instead." The gap between the sisters, Ashley living in Scottsdale's upscale neighborhood and Linda in a modest apartment, had only grown wider over the years. But Linda never showed weakness in front of her son. "It's okay. We'll go," she said quietly while checking the RSVP box on the invitation, firmly making her decision. She had an intuition that this might be the last time she would have to endure such treatment. Outside the window, the Arizona morning sun illuminated the desert city. The church bells announced the beginning of a new day. Their sound rang ominously, like some kind of omen. Inside the apartment, Tommy cheerfully told his mother about the week's events while drizzling syrup over his pancakes. As Linda parked her car in the Phoenician's luxurious parking lot, she let out a deep sigh. Her navy dress felt unusually heavy on her body, tired from weekday night shifts. Tommy in the passenger seat, dressed in a white shirt and tie, looked tense. "Mom, do you think Grandma and everyone will like this present?" Tommy carefully held a handmade album. It was a baby development record notebook he had created for his summer vacation project. It was a labor of love, incorporating medical perspectives after reading several developmental psychology books, prepared diligently for his future cousin. "I'm sure it will be a wonderful gift." While saying this, Linda's heart felt heavy. Several luxury cars belonging to church members were already lined up at the hotel entrance. The pastor's wife and key members of the Women's Association from First United Methodist Church of Scottsdale. Entering the lobby, they were greeted by massive floral arrangements. The sweet fragrance of roses and calla lilies wafted through the air. At the reception, Ashley's best friend Sarah sat elegantly, checking the guest list. "Oh, Linda." Sarah's voice carried obvious disdain. Even her check marking was dismissive. "Your seats are, well, over there at the edge." The assigned location was the furthest corner from the main table, near the staff serving area. Entering the party room, it was already bustling with about 50 guests. Ashley, in her maternity dress, was surrounded by upper-class ladies. Her pale pink dress was likely from a luxury brand, probably costing thousands of dollars. What a lovely baby shower. As expected of Ashley, her sense of style is different. This will surely be a wonderful family when the baby arrives. Amidst the flying elegant praises, someone who spotted Linda and Tommy whispered, "That child." "Yes, the adopted one. Actually, her real daughters." "Well, better not mention it today." Those whispers gradually spread. The atmosphere in the room subtly changed. Mother Patricia exuded queen-like dignity next to Ashley. Having worked at the church for over 30 years, she was a pillar of this community. However, her gaze toward Linda was ice-cold. "Maybe we should at least say hello," Tommy said in a small voice. Clutching the album to his chest, he tried to move forward hesitantly. His pure intention squeezed Linda's heart. But then it happened. "Today is a celebration for my real grandchild," Patricia's voice rang throughout the room. "Your child has nothing to do with this." For a moment, the room fell silent. "Grandma, aren't I family too?" At Tommy's trembling voice, Ashley snickered. "Family? Don't be ridiculous. You're our shame." Those words were like a poison blade. Mother gestured to a waiter, and a man in black approached. "I'm sorry, but these people." At that moment, something snapped inside Linda. "Tommy, let's go home." Taking her son's small hand, she silently left the venue. In the elevator, Tommy finally let his tears fall. He clutched the handmade album tightly, his shoulders shaking. It's all right. We don't need to see those people anymore. Back at the parking lot, Linda embraced her son in the car. The desert sunset was painting the Phoenicians' luxurious building red. That night, Linda sat at her computer. The habit of recording hospital events was something she had acquired as a nurse. She decided to start a new record today. April 13, 2024. Events at the baby shower. As she typed the title, she smiled quietly. She needed to record everything that happened today. Because someday, these records would be necessary. In the bedroom, Tommy was already asleep. By his pillow lay the album he couldn't give to anyone. On its cover, the words, "Welcome, dear cousin," were carefully written. Her phone on the desk lit up. A message from her mother. "Why did you leave? Everyone was watching. Don't embarrass us." Linda filed the message away without reading it again. The emergency room at Mayo Clinic Scottsdale was busy even on a May midnight. Linda was finishing up her charts while instructing a new nurse. A month had passed since the baby shower, and her life had returned to its routine. Responding to a resident doctor's voice rushing down the hallway with an emergency transport, Linda immediately entered response mode. She checked the information sent from the ambulance. Female, 67 years old, sudden loss of consciousness and right side paralysis. Suspected stroke. The moment she saw the patient's name, Linda's hand froze momentarily. Patricia Miller. Her mother. Minutes later, the ambulance siren approached. On the stretcher, her mother was breathing with difficulty. Though conscious, her right side showed clearly diminished movement. The right side of her face was slightly distorted. "I'll take charge." Linda began giving instructions calmly. Emergency CT scan, blood tests, calling in the neurologist. Over 10 years of experience moved her body naturally. "You." Mother squeezed out a hoarse voice through her distorted mouth. Her eyes showed clear agitation. Her usual high-handed attitude had disappeared, leaving just a frail old woman. "Mother, please don't speak now. We're starting the examination." Linda silenced her mother in a professional tone. Different footsteps echoed in the hospital hallway at midnight. Ashley, accompanied by her husband James, had rushed in. She was breathing heavily while holding her 7-month pregnant belly. "Mother is, how could? That's not good. You shouldn't run like that." At Linda's words, Ashley finally noticed her sister's presence. Then, as if just remembering that her sister worked in this hospital's emergency room, her expression changed. "Are you in charge?" "Yes. I'll do my best." At this matter-of-fact response, Ashley was left speechless. The 30 minutes waiting for test results felt eternal. In the waiting room, Ashley trembled while leaning against her husband. Seeing her, Linda momentarily recalled the events at the baby shower. But she quickly shook her head, suppressing those emotions. "Here are Mrs. Miller's test results." Neurologist Dr. Thompson began explaining while showing the images. "It's an embolic stroke in the right middle cerebral artery. Fortunately, since it was discovered early, she's eligible for thrombolytic therapy. However, This treatment carries risks. Please. Start the treatment. Ashley begged through tears. Beside her, James wore a complicated expression. He was probably already worried about the high treatment costs. Linda silently began preparations. Setting up the floor, installing monitors, preparing necessary documents. Her mother's life was now in her hands. In the treatment room, Mother suddenly grabbed Linda's left hand awkwardly, her right hand being impaired. That time. I'm sorry. Mother, please don't talk now. Let's focus on the treatment. Linda quietly but firmly removed her mother's hand. By dawn, Mother's condition had stabilized. Her consciousness was stable, and the paralysis showed slight signs of improvement. However, this was just the beginning of a long battle. Rehabilitation will take at least 3 months. At Dr. Thompson's explanation, Ashley's face turned pale. But, my delivery. That's right. Her sister's due date was in August. The timing of Mother's care and preparation for childbirth would overlap. What should we do? Ashley's weak voice echoed in the hallway. For her sister, who had lived an elegant life as a housewife in a luxury home, this reality seemed too heavy to bear. Head Nurse Carter. Dr. Thompson called out. You're one of our most knowledgeable nurses about this treatment and rehabilitation. Since you're also family, if possible. Before he could finish, Ashley jumped at the opportunity. Linda, please. Help us. I'm truly sorry about before. Can't we let bygones be bygones? At that moment, Linda's phone rang. Hello, Tommy. Yes, it's okay. Take the day off from school and rest. While listening to her son's voice, Linda smiled quietly. I'm sorry. I have a child I'm raising alone. I can't change my night shift schedule. Those words were as cold as ice, yet perfectly clear. But. Leaving Ashley in distress, Linda returned to the nurse's station. She opened her computer and began recording again. May 15, 2024. Regarding Mother's emergency hospitalization. Her typing fingers trembled slightly. However, the trembling wasn't from fear. Something had definitely started moving. Outside the window, the Arizona sun was beginning to rise. Church bells rang, announcing the start of a new day. The sound was like announcing that the wheels of fate had begun to turn. In the hospital room, Mother was sleeping. Her former dignity had disappeared, leaving just a frail old woman taking shallow breaths. Her right hand occasionally trembled slightly, as if seeking help from someone. Linda entered the last record and turned off the computer. The long night shift was ending. At home, Tommy would surely be waiting with a worried face. Head Nurse Carter. As she was preparing to leave, a young nurse rushed over. Could you switch with me for Mrs. Miller? I don't have much experience. Linda quietly shook her head. It's all right. I'll take charge. However. She paused slightly. Make sure to record everything in detail. The young nurse looked puzzled but nodded. Records. They are a nurse's foundation and sometimes their greatest weapon. While stepping into the elevator, Linda let out a deep sigh. This was just the prologue to a long battle ahead. However, her heart was strangely peaceful. The obstetrics ward at Mayo Clinic Scottsdale kept its lights on quietly even on a hot August night. Ashley's painful cries leaked from the delivery room, while her husband James paced nervously in the hallway. It's been 36 hours since labor began, still no progress. Dr. Martinez explained the situation with a serious expression. Signs of a difficult delivery were beginning to show. Meanwhile, in the recovery ward on a different floor of the same hospital, Patricia's rehabilitation was struggling. The stroke's aftereffects were worse than expected, with right-side paralysis showing little improvement. Language impairment also remained, making even proper conversation difficult. Report on Mrs. Brooks's labor progress. A young nurse rushed into the nurse's station. Linda quietly looked up and reviewed the chart. Her sister's risk of postpartum hemorrhage was increasing. Head nurse Carter, I'm sorry, but Mrs. Brooks wants to see you. Linda let out a deep sigh. Since mother's hospitalization 3 months ago, her sister had repeatedly sought help. Each time, she had calmly but firmly refused. On her way to the delivery room, her phone vibrated. A message from Tommy. Mom, don't worry about dinner tonight. I'll cook. Do your best taking care of Grandma. Linda smiled slightly at the heartwarming message. Her son's cooking skills had improved lately. Especially his spaghetti with meat sauce, which turned out wonderfully. Opening the delivery room door, she saw Ashley's pained face. Her face was swollen from pregnancy-induced hypertension. Her former beauty had faded, leaving just an exhausted pregnant woman. Linda, please, help. There's little I can do. But, surely you. At that moment, the monitor began sounding an alarm. The fetal heart rate was dropping rapidly. Prepare for emergency C-section. Dr. Martinez's voice rang through the room. Hours later, Ashley Brooks's daughter, Emma Grace Brooks, was born. However, this was just the beginning of new hardships. The symptoms of postpartum depression are significant. Psychiatrist Dr. Wilson made the diagnosis. Ashley refused to even touch the baby, remaining in an apathetic state. Mother needs care too. James held his head. His work as a law firm partner was extremely busy, leaving no time for family issues. We looked for nursing homes, but they're all full. High-end care facilities all had long waiting lists, and Mother refused other facilities. Her pride wouldn't allow her to accept standard facilities. Linda, I'm asking you too. One day, James visited the hospital. His usually calm voice trembled slightly. Both my wife and mother-in-law need your help. Any conditions? Linda quietly opened her mouth. Really, any conditions? Yes. Name your price. This isn't about money. Linda stood up and took out a file from her desk drawer. The past few months' records were neatly bound. What I want is the truth to be revealed. At church, mother and sister must tell everything. That Tommy is not an adopted child, but my biological son. And about all the discriminatory treatment we've endured. James's face turned pale. But that would. Patricia's position. Just then, the phone at the nurse's station rang. Emergency. Mrs. Miller has fallen. Linda immediately headed to her mother's room. Mother had fallen from her bed, desperately trying to grab the bed rail with her left hand. Her right side paralysis made the movement awkward. "Mother, you're all right." Linda lifted her mother up. The body that was once full of dignity now felt so light. "I'm sorry." A hoarse voice escaped from Mother's distorted mouth. "I'll do anything you say." At those words, Linda quietly closed her eyes. "I understand. But I have one condition." The following Sunday, First United Methodist Church of Scottsdale was more crowded than usual. People who had heard the rumors were gathering one after another. Linda quietly pushed her mother's wheelchair to the center of the church. Beside them was Ashley, her postpartum body not yet recovered. James Brooks supported his wife with a complicated expression. In front of the pulpit, Mother began speaking with a trembling voice. 17 years ago, I committed a grave sin. As the church congregation watched with bated breath, all the truth was revealed. The sin of hiding her daughter, who became an unwed mother, lying about her grandson being adopted, and dividing the family. When the confession ended, silence enveloped the church. One by one, gazes turned to Linda. She calmly pushed her mother's wheelchair and left the church. That evening, Tommy was unusually quiet during dinner. "What did you think about Grandma's speech?" "I'm glad she told the truth honestly." A deep thoughtfulness reflected in her son's eyes. "But forgiveness is another matter, right?" Linda embraced her son. "Yes. Whether to forgive is our choice." Outside the window, the Arizona sunset was setting. The church bells rang, announcing the end of this long day. Their sound no longer rang ominously. Instead, they rang quietly, as if announcing a new beginning. On Christmas Eve 2026, an unusually cool wind blew through Scottsdale. In the head nurse's office at Mayo Clinic Scottsdale, Linda was trying to finish her year-end paperwork. "Good work, head nurse Carter." Young nurses bid farewell one after another. After the events 2 years ago, her evaluation had steadily risen, and now she was a central figure in the nursing department. "Mom, I'm here to pick you up." In the evening, Tommy poked his head in. His height now surpassed his mother's, and his refined features were becoming more adult-like. On his uniform blazer shone the president's badge of the Scientific Research Club. "I'm sorry, could you wait just a little longer?" As Linda was making her final entries on the computer, her phone vibrated. It was a call from the nursing home, Desert Sunset Villa. "This is Linda Carter." "Miss Carter, we're sorry, but Mrs. Miller is again expressing a desire to go home." Through the phone, she could hear her mother's distressed voice. The stroke's aftereffects hadn't fully recovered even after 2 years. Though the right side paralysis had improved somewhat, she still needed constant assistance for daily living. "I understand. I'll visit later." When she hung up, Tommy peered worriedly at his mother's face. "Is Grandma not feeling well again?" "Yes, but it's all right." The nursing home wasn't necessarily a luxury facility. James Brooks's law firm had been suspended from operation after their involvement in a corporate accounting fraud was discovered. They could barely afford their home mortgage, let alone an expensive care facility. While driving, Linda recalled 2 years ago. After the confession at church, her mother and sister's social standing had rapidly crumbled. The church ladies began avoiding them, and former friends kept their distance. Arriving at the nursing home, Mother was sitting in a chair by the window. Her former dignity was completely gone, leaving her looking small and withdrawn. "Linda, you came." Mother's voice trembled faintly. Lately, she had been calling her grandson Tommy's name more often. Her former discriminatory attitude had completely disappeared. "Merry Christmas, Grandma." Mother carefully accepted the handmade card Tommy offered with her left hand. Her right hand still wouldn't move as she wished. "Thank you, Tommy." Tears rolled down Mother's cheeks. Just then, hurried footsteps were heard in the hallway. Turning around, Ashley stood there. Though still undergoing treatment for postpartum depression, she was gradually regaining her daily routine. Despite being in divorce mediation, she was somehow managing to raise her 2-year-old daughter Emma. "Mother." The sisters exchanged glances with few words. The former hostility was gone, leaving only tired expressions. "Linda, this." Ashley held out an envelope. Inside was a long handwritten letter. "To my beloved sister." Linda put the letter that began this way into her bag. Now wasn't the time to read it. "Mom, shouldn't we head home?" Tommy's voice brought Linda back to reality. Tonight was an important Christmas Eve with her son. "Yes, let's do that." After waving briefly to Mother, Linda left the nursing home with her son. "Hey Mom." Tommy spoke quietly as they drove. "Don't you think it might be okay to forgive Grandma now?" Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Yes, but I might still need a little more time." Back at their apartment, a small Christmas tree cast a warm light. The ornaments Tommy had carefully decorated illuminated the room gently. On the table was a homemade roast chicken and salad prepared by her son. His cooking skills had improved considerably. "Let's eat." Mother and son quietly picked up their utensils before the warm meal. Outside the window, church bells were ringing. The letter in her bag tugged slightly at her mind. But that could wait until tomorrow. Now, she wanted to cherish this peaceful moment. "Mom, I'm aiming for medical school next year." Tommy's eyes shone with determination. "I'm sure you'll become an excellent doctor." Linda gently held her son's hand. Indeed, the past had been painful. But the future was different. She could walk a new path together with this child. In the Scottsdale night sky, stars twinkled. They shone quietly but surely, like lights of new hope.